What cannot be measured cannot be managed. Perhaps you have heard this before, stated in boardrooms, offices, and public spaces. But have you ever heard this follow-up question? How do we know that what we measure is actually what we want to manage? To begin to explore this question, we need to see how the measuring tools we use are built, which in our case refers to the building blocks of indicators. How do we go from the idea that something needs to be managed and arrive at a specific indicator that reflects what we want to measure? To discuss this, we will be using a framework developed initially by Lazarsfeld in 1958 and furthered for sustainability indicators by Boulanger in 2008. As you see here, there are 4 building blocks on the left of the arrow: concepts, dimensions, indicators, and indices, with their respective processes on the right. The conceptual analysis refers to finding patterns regarding a specific phenomenon or process. Take as an example water quality. At some point in history, people realized that the appearance of water was not sufficient to know whether water was safe for human consumption. As different characteristics were identified, the temperature, the color, the bacterial count, and so on, the overall concept of water quality was established. From this broad concept, its most relevant aspects or variables are then defined in order to identify what will be actually measured and monitored. This also means that some variables will be left out, either by choice or because we cannot measure them. For the case of water quality, some of the most common dimensions used in drinking water sector are shown here: user perception, E. coli count, and turbidity. Once the dimensions are set, we need to define a measuring spectrum or range that will help us define if the dimension is within accepted parameters. These can be either quantitative or qualitative. For example, quantitatively, we can define the unit of measurement and the range for safe water for E. coli or turbidity. Or qualitatively, we gauge if the smell and taste of water are acceptable to the users or not. The final step is when we want to join indicators to provide a single, easy-to-understand judgment. This requires defining if all indicators are equally important. For example, is user perception as important as an E. coli count when deciding if the quality of a water source is safe? The SDGs, for example, act as indices, in that they take a number of different measurements to state whether a water body has a good ambient water quality or not. Having seen this, it becomes evident that thought and due care must be given to ensure that the choice of indicators we use to measure and monitor our progress are properly aligned with the concept and the dimensions that we care about, those that matter to us. Now, it's time for you to explore, decide, and maybe even design the indicators most relevant for your case. Enjoy the process.